Good evening, precious dreamers. Tonight we have an extra special travel in medieval. What was travel like in medieval times? Did people travel during the Middle Ages? Get your favorite blanket, cuddle up close, get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see. Let's begin this medieval bedtime adventure together. Imagine stepping into a world where the streets are narrow, the buildings loom overhead, and every shadow could hide danger or opportunity. Welcome to medieval Europe, a time often called the Dark Ages, yet far richer and more alive than most imagine. Today we embark on a journey to explore the very heart of city life during this mysterious era. You approach the city gates just as dawn hesitates on the horizon, a pale wash of silver pressing against the last strands of night. The road beneath your feet is uneven, a mixture of mud and stone softened by last night's rain. Each step makes a quiet sound, half squelch, half crunch, as though the earth itself is whispering your arrival. Before you, the wooden gates rise tall and dark, beams swollen from centuries of weather, their surface etched with grooves from countless hands, countless knocks, countless seasons of war and peace. Iron bands cross the timbers, dulled with rust, but still strong, holding the memory of every traveler who has passed through. You pause there, just outside, and listen. The faint drip of water slides down from the battlements. A torch sputters on the wall, its glow trembling across damp stone. Somewhere above, the sentry clears his throat. The sound deep, low, and human, an ordinary noise made extraordinary by the silence of the hour. Beyond the gates lies a murmur, muffled but present. The stirring of hooves on cobbles, the clink of buckets being set down, the distant cough of someone waking from a straw bed, all of it softened, wrapped in layers of fog and wood, as though the city is still dreaming. You reach out and touch the wood. It is cool beneath your fingertips, damp and rough, smelling of oak and tar. For a moment you let your hand rest there, and in that simple gesture you feel centuries of history press back. You imagine the pilgrims, soldiers, merchants, and wanderers who touched this very gate, some with hope, some with fear, all carrying their lives in bundles on their backs. And then, quietly, the gates creak, not wide, not sudden, but slowly, groaning in the voice of old timber as the city stirs awake. Through the opening seeps a faint glow, lantern light blending with the first grey of dawn. It beckons you inside, promising warmth, mystery, and the gentle hum of life unfolding. You breathe in, long and steady, and step forward. The walls close softly behind you, wrapping you in their shadow. The journey has begun, and the city cradles you now, as though inviting you to rest within its watchful arm. The road behind you winds into shadow, stretching back toward fields and woodland where the night still lingers. The grass along its edges is heavy with dew, bending under the faint touch of morning. You hear your own footsteps, slow, deliberate, softened by the damp earth. They do not echo here. Instead, each step disappears into the hush, swallowed by the silence of the countryside just before dawn. Ahead, the gates of the city rise tall against the paling sky. Their outline is heavy, almost solemn, as though the timbers themselves remember centuries of watchfulness. The surface of the wood is not smooth. It ripples with age, each plank marked by grooves and knots, scarred where iron once struck. You notice the metal bands, thick and dark, wrapped across the beams. They are rough with rust, but still unyielding, still binding the whole structure together like a clasp on a chest of secrets. You pause a little distance away. The air is cooler here, caught in the shadow of the walls. Your breath forms in pale clouds, drifting gently upward, vanishing into the mist. You tilt your head back to take in the battlements above. Stones jut outward, softened by moss, and a small patch of ivy clings stubbornly to the corner. A single torch flickers there, its flame fragile but steady, a tiny beacon against the grey. From above, a faint sound reaches you, a cough muffled, then the scrape of a boot along the wooden planks. A sentry is awake, keeping vigil, though you cannot see him clearly. His presence is felt more than seen, a reminder that even in these quiet moments, the city is never unguarded. The gates themselves seem to breathe, You notice how they shift slightly with the wind, groaning as the wood expands and contracts. It is not a loud sound, more of a low sigh, almost human, as though the city itself is still half asleep. Beyond the timber you hear life beginning. Not clearly, not yet, just fragments. The distant clop of hooves on cobblestone. A pail set down with a dull ring. The faint crackle of a fire being coaxed to life. Voices too indistinct, blending together like the murmur of a stream under stone. It is the city stirring, stretching after a long night, preparing itself for the day. You step closer, and the smell reaches you. The wood carries the scent of smoke, of resin and tar. There is damp stone as well, mingling with the earthy fragrance of soil pressed by hundreds of footsteps before yours. You rest your palm against the timber. It is cool, slick in places where the rain has soaked deepest. For a moment you keep your hand there, and with it comes a quiet thought that this same surface has been touched by countless travelers. Some arrived weary from pilgrimage, others came with goods to sell. A few approached with hope, others with fear. The wood remembers them all. Then, with the slow heaviness of age, the gates begin to open. The timbers creak, a long, low groan as though the very earth must lend its strength to the movement. A narrow seam of light appears, not bright but warm lantern light spilling gently outward, carrying with it the faint fragrance of baking bread and the sharper tang of wood smoke. The seam widens, inch by inch, until the glow becomes a path. You breathe in, and the air feels different now. Inside is the promise of safety, of human presence, of hearths and walls. Outside, behind you, the countryside stretches vast and empty. Ahead, the city waits. You take your first step forward, the stone beneath your boots firmer, worn smooth by centuries of passage. The sound is soft, almost ceremonial. One step, then another, until the shadow of the gate enfolds you. The wooden doors swing closed again with a heavy thud, sealing the night away. And now you are within. The city has claimed you, gently, as though wrapping you in its arms. You exhale slowly. The road before you narrows, lined with walls and low roofs, lanterns guttering on iron hooks. The air hums faintly with voices, footsteps, the sigh of wind. You feel it all at once, that you are not only entering a place, but a moment in time, carried carefully into the heart of the Dark Ages, where the stones and timbers hold both memory and mystery. As you move further inside the walls, the silence begins to soften into something warmer. At first, it is not sound that greets you, but scent. A low current of air drifts between the narrow lanes, carrying with it the unmistakable fragrance of hearth fires that have smoldered since before dawn. The smoke is gentle here, not choking, not thick. It hangs in thin ribbons, curling upward from small chimneys of clay and stone. The smell is earthy, almost sweet, as the peat and wood release their stories into the air. Some houses burn oak, leaving a resinous tang that lingers in the throat. Others burn straw, sharper, more brittle, reminding you of summer fields now long harvested. Together, they weave a fragrance that is both strange and familiar, like walking into a memory you never lived, yet somehow know. You pause at a corner where the alley bends, and you breathe more deeply. The air is cooler in your lungs, edged with ash, but warmed with something comforting. You picture the rooms behind the walls, dim interiors, firelight spilling in golden pools across rough planks, children curled on benches, a pot of broth simmering slowly over the coals. You cannot see them, but the smoke tells their story, drifting outward, carrying with it a promise of warmth, of safety, of life continuing behind closed doors. Here, a kitchen fire whispers of baking bread, the yeast and flour rising in the air. There, another carries a faint trace of meat roasting, salted fat dripping into the flames, a reminder that feasts, even humble ones, are always near the heart of the city. Your stomach tightens slightly, though not with hunger, more with recognition, as though the air itself feeds you in some gentle, unseen way. Overhead, smoke threads itself into the mist. It clings to rooftops, slides between beams, and then vanishes into the pale sky, dispersing until it becomes invisible, though its essence remains. You notice how the scent never overwhelms, never presses too sharply against your senses. Instead, it lingers at the edges of awareness, soft, continuous, like a lullaby hummed just out of reach. You brush your fingers along the wall beside you, its stones cool and rough beneath your skin. The smoke has stained them faintly over years uncounted, leaving a shadowy patina, a memory of every fire ever kindled here. The wall seems to breathe it out in silence, as though the city itself exhales with every chimney, every hearth, every flame flickering within. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the smell envelop you fully. It is more than just wood and peat, more than fire and ash. It is belonging. It is the scent of humanity clinging together against the cold, of nights when flames were the only light to be trusted, of mornings when the world awoke beneath the watchful glow of coals. And as you open your eyes again, you realize that the city is not merely a place of stone and timber. It is alive. It breathes through its chimneys, it speaks through its smoke, and in this early hour, it wraps you in its warmth as though drawing you nearer, guiding you further, deeper into its quiet heart. The first true greeting the city offers you is not through sight, nor sound, but through smell. Long before the streets reveal their faces, before the voices of vendors rise above the hush, the air itself folds around you, carrying the low, steady perfume of burning wood. It comes in waves, thin at first, then thicker as you move deeper. Smoke from hearths, layered and interwoven, drifting slowly across the lanes like invisible threads binding the city together. One house sends out the sharp crackle of pine, resinous and bright. Another whispers with the softer, mossy breath of peat, harvested from fields where earth has slept for centuries. Still another speaks with oak, its heavy presence lingering low and rich in your lungs. Every door, every chimney, has its own note to add, and together they form a chorus of warmth, a fragrance that is not one fire but hundreds, all burning in quiet harmony. It is not harsh, not suffocating. The smoke does not sting. Instead, it is softened by distance, muted by morning mist. It settles around you like a shore, not smothering, but embracing, reminding you that within these walls, countless flames flicker against the dark. You imagine the rooms behind those walls. Inside, firelight trembles across stone, catching the edge of a pot suspended above the embers. Broth bubbles softly, its scent rising through the rafters, carrying onion, perhaps garlic, maybe a pinch of salt. A family gathers close, their breaths joining the smoke, adding their warmth to the flame. The fire holds them together, just as it holds the city. You take another step, and the scent changes again. A baker's oven, deep in the lane, exhales the warm, sweet heaviness of rising dough. You pause, and the smell alone is enough to conjure the taste, a crust forming golden, soft crumb steaming within. A few streets away, another fire adds its voice, meat turning slowly on a spit, fat hissing as it drips into flame, each drop bursting with a muted crackle that you can almost hear through the wall. The air is full, yet never crowded. Every smell is distinct, yet none clamors. Together they weave into something ancient and human, an atmosphere of survival, of comfort, of quiet abundance. You notice how the smoke clings to the stones. The walls themselves are stained, darkened with years of soot that has seeped into their pores. They wear this memory of fire like a garment, each blackened edge a silent testimony to the thousands of mornings, just like this one, when the city awoke under the soft veil of its own breath. You lift your eyes and see the smoke rising, slowly, effortlessly, upward into the grey light of dawn. It coils and bends, carried on the faintest wind, slipping through rafters and rooftops until it vanishes into the pale sky. And yet, though it disappears from sight, it lingers still in the air you breathe, in the rhythm of the streets, in the calm that steals over your body. You breathe deeply, and it steadies you. The scent is more than fire. It is ritual. It is memory. It is humanity itself, gathered in circles around warmth, keeping out the night, marking the beginning of the day. And as you stand there, surrounded by the invisible embrace of countless flames, you feel the city speaking to you without words. Here, within these walls, you will not be alone. Here the fires burn not only to feed, but to soothe, to guide, to guard. And with each breath, you feel yourself sink deeper into its quiet rhythm, as though the smoke itself is leading you further gently into rest. The street bends, and with it the air begins to change. What was once only the hush of hearth smoke now carries with it a quiet energy, subtle, not sharp like the low hum of bees waking in their hive. You find yourself at the edge of the market square. It is not grand, not paved in marble or gilded with finery, but it is alive in its own way. The ground here is uneven, cobblestones slick with the memory of rain, their gaps filled with soil and straw. A few chickens scratch among them, their soft clucks punctuating the silence, as though reminding the city that life stirs long before the sun. Stalls are being set, slowly, patiently, by hands that know their work. Rough tables of oak patched with nails lean forward beneath canvas awnings stretched overhead. The cloth is frayed, stitched and re-stitched, its edges flapping gently with the morning breeze. Each awning is a shade of muted color, faded red, weather-worn green, pale gray, and together they ripple like a patchwork sky above the square. The vendors speak softly as they work, not shouts, not yet, only murmurs low and steady, voices like the first notes of a song not fully begun. They exchange words about prices, about weather, about nothing at all, words carried lazily into the air, overlapping until they blend into a single sound. It is not a conversation you can follow. It is a texture, a tapestry of human presence, woven with sighs and pauses, with footsteps on stone, with cloth brushing against wood. You draw closer. The scents meet you first. A basket of apples gives off a crisp, sweet perfume. A sack of dried fish, sharp and briny, balances it with a salt-bitten edge. From somewhere nearby comes the earthy aroma of onions, their papery skins rustling as they are poured into a wooden bin. Every stall adds its note to the growing chord, each smell distinct but softened by the cool air. The driver steadies his load, sacks of grain stacked high, their coarse fabric spilling dust into the breeze. The dust catches in the faint shaft of sunlight breaking over the roofs, glowing briefly before vanishing into the mist. Children wander between the stalls, carrying baskets too large for their hands. They move slowly, rubbing sleep from their eyes, tugging at cloaks, their voices hushed. One pauses to chase a bird from a spilled basket of beans. The bird flutters upward, wings catching the air with a sound like the turning of pages, before settling again on a rooftop beam. Then, all around you the murmur continues. A pot set down with a soft clink, a seller's breath as he lifts a sack. A quiet laugh shared between neighbors who have stood in this square together every week of their lives. There is no rush, no frenzy. The market is still only half awake, still gathering its rhythm. You stand at its center and close your eyes for a moment. The sound fills you, not loud, not insistent, but continuous, steady, like a stream flowing beneath stone. The market does not demand your attention. It lulls you, draws you into its gentle current, as if to remind you that life, even in the dark ages, is not only struggle, but also these quiet rituals of trade and community. When you open your eyes again, the scene feels softer. The stalls blur slightly into the mist. The voices continue, but you hear them less as words and more as music. Even the cobblestones beneath your boots seem to carry the rhythm, each uneven stone a note in the song of the square. And so you linger there, breathing it in, the smell of bread, the murmur of voices, the creak of carts. The market hums on, not hurried, not loud, just steady, just present. A lullaby made not of silence but of life itself, unfolding gently before the day truly begins. The market square greets you not with noise or commotion, but with a kind of drowsy stirring, like a child stretching beneath a blanket before fully waking. The air here is different than at the gates. It moves with intention. It carries scents, sounds, fragments of lives that weave together into something greater than any single stall or step. Their hands move with the weight of habit, lifting, folding, arranging goods in patterns they have repeated hundreds of times before. A woman lays out bolts of rough wool, their colors muted, dun, brown, gray, yet each one carrying the warmth of sheep that wandered hillside pastures months ago. She smooths the fabric carefully, her palms pressing down as though sealing the memory of the animal into the cloth. Next to her, a man pours dried peas from one sack into another, the small green orbs striking wood with a soft patter, like rain on a roof. He pauses, ties a knot in the rope, then begins again. The sound is steady, rhythmic, almost meditative. Everywhere you turn, textures multiply. The scrape of a cart's wheel as it shifts unevenly across the cobbles. The muted bleat of a goat tethered near a stall, its breath puffing visibly in the cool air. The flap of canvas overhead, tugged and released by the faintest morning breeze. Together, these details build a world not loud but layered, a world alive without ever shouting. You notice how the market smells differently in every corner. One side is sweet with fruit, apples just pulled from storage cellars, their skins cool and shining. Pears spotted but fragrant, each piece a small treasure from orchards that once blazed with autumn color. Another side is sharp with salted fish, laid out in rows on wooden boards, their scales dulled but still catching glimmers of light. The brine lingers at the back of your throat, a reminder of distant coasts and long journeys inland. And then there is bread, always bread. A baker's boy runs through the square with a basket clutched to his chest, the loaves wrapped in rough linen, steam still rising from the crust. The smell follows him as he passes, warm, yeasty, grounding. You watch as he delivers the basket to a stall where the loaves are unwrapped and placed on display, golden brown against the grey of the wood. As you walk, you begin to hear laughter. Not loud, not raucous, but soft, warm laughter. The kind that flows easily between neighbors who have stood shoulder to shoulder here their entire lives. A man teases a friend over the price of onions, his voice low but carrying warmth. The woman selling them smiles faintly, shaking her head, replying with words you cannot quite catch. It does not matter. The meaning is not in the words but in the tone, in the comfort of familiarity. Children slip between the stalls, their bare feet quick on the cobblestones. They tug at cloaks, chase stray dogs, lean too close to baskets of grain before being guided gently away by tired hands. Their presence adds a liveliness to the square, a reminder that markets are not only for trade, but also for life itself. Its noise, its messiness, its small joys. The longer you linger, the more the murmur becomes music. You stop trying to separate voices or trace sounds to their sources. Instead, you let the whole square wash over you, the hush of conversation, the creak of timber, the rustle of cloth, the sigh of wind through canvas. It is a song without melody, a rhythm without measure, yet it soothes you in its constancy. You stand at the center, breathing deeply. The smoke of hearths mingles with the spice of goods, with the musk of animals, with the sweetness of fruit. The smell is rich but never overwhelming. It settles into your lungs, into your memory, as though the market itself wants you to carry a piece of it forward. Slowly, the mist above the square begins to thin. Sunlight edges over the rooftops, spilling like honey across the canvas awnings. For a moment, the whole market glows, faded cloth brightening, metal pots catching sparks of light, dust rising in golden motes. You blink, and the glow softens, fading back into the calm rhythm of morning. And there you remain, listening. The market does not call you to hurry. It invites you to linger, to stand still, to let the murmur become your own heartbeat, steady and unbroken. To understand that this is not only a place of trade, but of ritual, of gathering, of life continuing quietly, century after century, under the same pale sky. The market slowly falls behind you, its murmurs fading into the distance, and you find yourself drawn toward the narrower veins of the city, the lanes that twist and wind like rivers carved through stone and timber. The ground beneath you changes as you go. The cobblestones of the square give way to something softer, less certain. Mud lies pooled between uneven slabs, pressed by cartwheels and footsteps into long grooves that never quite dry. Your boots sink slightly with each step, the earth releasing a low, quiet squelch, as if sighing at the weight of your passage. The sound is small, but it carries. In the hush of these back streets, every footfall seems to echo. Not loudly, not sharply, but gently, like ripples spreading across a pond. A puddle shivers as your heel touches down, the water glinting faintly in the pale morning light. You step over another rut, its surface slick with yesterday's rain. the mud reflecting the faint outlines of roof beams above. The air here is cooler, shaded by houses that lean inward as though in conversation. Their upper stories extend over the lane, timbers jutting, plaster cracked and patched with care. The buildings seem almost alive, huddled together, shoulders touching, their windows peering down like watchful eyes. The closeness of the walls turns the lane into a tunnel, guiding sound along its length, the drip of water from a gutter, the rustle of fabric as someone closes a shutter, the faint crunch of straw underfoot. You pause for a moment and listen. From behind one wall comes the soft bleating of a goat, its call muted but insistent, echoing faintly through the timber. From another doorway drifts the aroma of boiling broth, onions and herbs mingling with the smoky air. Somewhere above, a child's laughter spills briefly from a window before vanishing again into the silence. Each detail is fleeting, yet together they make the lane feel inhabited, alive, though no one stands before you. Hoofprints mark where a horse passed not long ago, its tracks deep and sharp. Next to them, the lighter impressions of a cart's wheels, their path weaving slightly, burdened by uneven weight. And there, beside them, footprints, small, bare, pressed deeply into the earth, before vanishing into a side alley. These traces remind you that the city breathes not in grand gestures, but in these quiet movements of ordinary lives. You follow the curve of the lane as it bends, never straight, always shifting, as if shaped not by design, but by the slow pull of centuries. The walls close tighter here, their surfaces damp with moss. You brush your hand along one stone, its texture rough, its coolness seeping into your palm. The scent of wet earth rises stronger, mingling with the tang of old wood, as though the very bones of the city are exhaling around you. A trickle of water slides along the center of the lane, too narrow to be called a stream, yet steady in its path. It gathers from rooftop drains, from the spilling of buckets, from the night's rain, and moves sluggishly toward the lower streets. You watch it glisten as it carries tiny flecks of straw, dirt and ash. Its motion is quiet, but constant, a reminder that even here in stillness there is movement. As you continue, the lane narrows further. Shadows stretch across the walls, broken only by the glow of a lantern hanging crooked on an iron hook. The flame within trembles faintly, casting long, uneven patterns across the mud. The sight soothes you, as though the city itself has placed this light to guide your step. Your pace slows, not out of weariness, but in rhythm with the path itself. Each step becomes deliberate, unhurried. The sound of your boots in the mud joins with the quiet drip of water, the sigh of the wind, the faint creak of wood. Together, they form a hushed melody, simple yet endless. And as you walk deeper into these lanes, you feel the world narrowing, not in a way that confines, but in a way that comforts. The walls draw you inward. The mud anchors you softly. The sound of your footsteps reminds you that you are present, that you are moving, slowly but surely through the heartbeat of a city that has lived and breathed and endured through countless dawns like this one. The lane bends once more, and as you emerge from its shadowed throat, something larger begins to rise above the rooftops. At first, it is only a line against the pale sky. Then, slowly, it takes form. Tall, square, unyielding, a watchtower, standing at the corner of the wall, its stones darkened by centuries of weather, its silhouette softened by morning mist. The tower is not grand in the way of fossils, nor delicate like a church spire. It is heavy, purposeful, built not to inspire awe, but to endure. Its walls are thick, the kind of thickness that resists both time and men. Moss clings in seams between stones. Streaks of lichen mark its surface, and yet it does not seem aged. It seems timeless, as though it has always been here, and always will be. You pause to take it in. The tower rises far above the lane, its bulk blotting out a portion of the sky. Narrow slits break the stone at irregular intervals. Arrow loops meant for watchful eyes, and if need be, for weapons. In this moment they seem less like openings and more like unblinking eyes themselves, set high above, peering out with patience, with vigilance. A sound drifts down to you, the creak of timber as someone shifts their weight upon the wooden platform within. Then, faintly, the scrape of a boot, a cough, muffled by distance, echoing against the stone. You cannot see the watchman, but you know he is there, pacing slowly, scanning the city, scanning the horizon. His presence is steady, silent, like the tower itself. You draw closer. The shadow of the tower falls across you, and the air cools. The scent of damp stone thickens, mingling with the faint char of torches fixed along the wall. One burns weakly above the entrance, its flame small, but still holding against the soft morning wind. The smoke trails upward, blurring briefly before vanishing into the mist. At the base, the stones are worn smooth from countless hands, countless steps, countless days of passage. You touch them lightly as you pass, and the surface is cool beneath your fingertips, carrying the memory of centuries. You imagine the men who leaned against this wall, their spears in hand, their cloaks pulled tight against the cold. You picture travelers arriving, asking for directions, pausing here to feel both the reassurance and the quiet unease that the tower inspires. Above you, a bell hangs within the tower, motionless for now, but you can almost hear it in your mind, its toll resonating across the city, calling out warnings marking the hour, summoning men to arms, or announcing the end of day. Even in stillness, the bell seems alive, its silence filled with the memory of every time it has been struck. The longer you look, the more the tower seems less like a structure and more like a sentinel. Its stones are shoulders, its arrow slits are eyes, its voice is the bell, waiting to sound. It does not sleep. It does not falter. It looms, always. And yet, rather than menace, you feel something steadying in its presence, a reminder that the city, for all its fragility, is not unguarded. You step back, tilting your head higher, following the lines of the tower until they dissolve into the pale, misted sky. The morning light catches faintly on the edges of stone, softening its severity, wrapping its bulk in a gentle glow. For a moment, you feel very small, but not insignificant. Small in the way a single drop is small within the sea, part of something greater, something enduring. And then you continue onward, footsteps slow against the damp earth, leaving the tower behind you. Yet even as you walk deeper into the city, you feel its presence still at your back, steady, unmoving, like a guardian who watches without rest, like a silent promise that within these walls you are being held. The tower stands before you now, no longer distant, no longer hidden by mist. It is a thing of weight, a thing of silence. Not merely stone stacked upon stone, but a presence anchored into the earth as though it grew here rather than being built. You notice how its shape changes as you draw closer. From afar it seemed smooth, almost monolithic. But up close, the surface reveals a patchwork, stones of varying sizes, some carefully squared, others rough and irregular, all locked together by mortar darkened with age. The wall bears the scars of centuries, hairline cracks, chips where frost once swelled and retreated, faint pockmarks where arrows or stones may have struck long ago. None of it weakens the tower, each mark only deepens its character, as though time itself is engraving its story onto the surface. At the base, tufts of grass grow stubbornly in the seams, moss clings low where shade lingers, its texture soft, almost velvety beneath your hand. Higher up, where the sun has struck for centuries, the stone is bleached pale, warm to the touch even in this cool morning air. You run your fingers along the grooves, feeling the cold give way to faint warmth, as if the tower itself remembers the sun. Above, the arrow slits draw your gaze, thin vertical cuts, just wide enough for an archer to take aim. They seem like unblinking eyes, watching both inward toward the city and outward toward the open fields. You cannot tell if anyone peers through them now, but the possibility lingers, heavy and inescapable, the thought that you are being seen, weighed, measured. Then, a sound, subtle, but unmistakable, a shifting weight against timber, the muted scrape of a boot heel on wood. Somewhere high inside, a watchman moves. His pace is not hurried. It is deliberate, steady, unbroken, the rhythm of someone who has walked this path countless times before. circling the platform, scanning horizon and rooftops alike. You do not see him, but his presence infuses the tower. He is its pulse. The air around the tower feels different, cooler, sharper. You breathe in, and the scent is of damp stone, mingled with the faint tang of iron. There is also the lingering smoke of torches, charred wood, acrid yet comforting in its familiarity. One torch still burns above the arched doorway, its flame shivering against the morning light, casting a restless shadow across the stones. You look higher still. Near the crown of the tower, just below its battlements, a bell hangs. Large, dark, motionless, yet in its silence, it feels alive. You imagine its voice, deep, resonant, cutting across fields and alleys, reaching both friend and stranger alike. A bell that marks danger, a bell that marks the hours, a bell that binds the city together in shared time, shared fear, shared ritual. For now, it is quiet. But in that quiet is the memory of 1,000 tolls. The tower itself is not merely a building. It is a witness. It has seen faces come and go, soldiers leaning wearily against its stones, merchants unloading goods beneath its shadow, mothers calming restless children within earshot of its bell. It has seen panic ripple through the streets at the sound of alarm. It has seen celebrations too, when banners flew from its crown, when bells rang long into the night. You find yourself staring longer than you intended, caught by its gravity. It is not beautiful, not in any fragile sense. Its beauty lies in endurance, in patience, in the fact that while everything around it shifts, the mud in the lanes, the stalls in the market, the lives of those who come and go, the tower remains. It is the one thing in the city that feels permanent, as though it exists outside the rhythm of day. Standing there, you feel both small and strangely safe. The tower looms not to threaten, but to steady. Its shadow falls over you, and you realize the comfort of being watched, not as an individual, but as part of the collective city. It guards not you, but all of you, past, present, and those who will come after. When at last you turn to leave, you do so slowly, reluctant to break the silent communion. The tower stays behind, as it always does, rooted, unyielding. And as you walk onward into the city's winding veins, you know that even unseen, its gaze remains. The watchtower looms. The watchtower endures. The watchtower waits. You leave the shadow of the watchtower behind, stepping once more into the winding lanes. The air changes as you walk. The cool dampness of stone gives way to something sharper, warmer, almost metallic. It drifts faintly at first, the tang of iron, the ghost of smoke, until you round a corner and it grows stronger, thicker, undeniable. Ahead, the smithy announces itself not with sight, but with sound. A hammer strikes iron, a single blow loud, ringing. Then another and another. The rhythm is steady, deliberate, like a drumbeat guiding unseen dancers. Each strike reverberates through the lane, bouncing off timber walls, settling deep in your chest. It is not hurried. It is not careless. It is a slow, patient heartbeat, the heartbeat of the city itself. You draw closer. The narrow lane widens slightly into a small courtyard, half open to the sky, half sheltered beneath sloping timber beams. There beneath the canopy the forge glows, a bed of coals breathing with heat, their orange light spilling out onto the muddy ground. Sparks leap upward with every strike, brief constellations rising and fading in the air before dissolving into the mist. The blacksmith works with sleeves rolled high, arms glistening with sweat despite the morning chill. His movements are heavy but practiced, guided by memory rather than thought. He lifts the hammer, lets it fall, lifts again, each motion deliberate, as though in dialogue with the metal itself. The iron resists at first, then yields, changing shape with every blow, its red glow pulsing brighter with each breath of the bellows. The bellows themselves wheeze and sigh like lungs, exhaling heat into the fire, making the coals flare, making shadows leap across the walls. The flames respond as though alive, dancing in restless patterns, casting a glow that turns the smith's figure into a silhouette, part man, part shadow, part flame. Around the forge, the evidence of work is everywhere. Horseshoes, unfinished and finished, rest in neat piles. Blades lean against a beam, some dull and rough, others sharp and gleaming. Nails lie scattered in shallow bowls, their points catching stray flecks of light. Every object here speaks of utility, of necessity, of a world that depends upon fire and iron. The sound never ceases. Hammer, anvil, hammer, anvil. A cadence older than memory, repeating itself across centuries. Sometimes the blows are heavy, ringing, shaping something thick and stubborn. Other times they are lighter, quicker, tapping fine details into place. But always they continue, always the forge beats on. Tarn. You pause at the edge of the courtyard, letting the sound wash over you. It is strangely soothing, not gentle, not soft, but steady. A rhythm that anchors you, that reminds you of work done with purpose. The watchtower looms to protect, the market bustles to provide, but here, at the forge, the city creates. The city sustains. The smell of iron fills your lungs, sharp and clean. Beneath it lies the darker scent of charcoal, wood consumed by flame. The air is warm now, almost too warm, but you linger, drawn to the glow. You notice how the light of the forge colors everything it touches, the tools, the walls, the very air, painting the world in hues of orange and gold, as though the fire itself is lending a piece of its spirit to the space around it. The blacksmith does not look up, does not pause. His work continues, as it always has. Perhaps he does not see himself as part of the city's grand rhythm. Perhaps he does not think of his forge as a heart, yet every shoe for a horse, every nail for a cart, every blade for a hand begins here, with him, with this fire, with this steady pulse. You stay for a moment longer, listening, watching, breathing in the glow. And then, with the sound of the hammer still echoing in your ears, you step back into the lane, carrying the rhythm with you. The city moves forward, but part of its pulse will always beat here, in the forge, in the fire, in the endless conversation between iron and hand. The smithy's pulse, the city's heartbeat, the fire that endures. The rhythm of the hammer fades behind you, absorbed by the twisting lanes until it is nothing more than memory. Now the air changes once again. It grows cooler, quieter. The murmur of voices softens. The ground beneath your feet grows more even, less muddy, as though the city itself straightens its back in preparation. And then you see it, not at once, for the cathedral does not reveal itself like a sudden thing. Instead, it rises slowly, piece by piece, above the rooftops, a spire first, sharp against the pale sky. Then the slope of a roof, steep and immense. Then, as you turn a corner, the full facade unfurls before you, a wall of stone carved with care and patience that no single lifetime could contain. The cathedral looms. But unlike the watchtower, which broods in silence, this looming is different. It is not the presence of vigilance, but of devotion. A weight not of defense, but of faith. You stand before its doors, vast timbers bound with iron, their wood scarred by centuries of hands. Hands that pushed, hands that prayed, hands that trembled. The handles are worn smooth, polished not by design but by the passage of thousands upon thousands. The stone steps leading up to them are bowed in the center, worn concave by the slow erosion of feet, a testament written not in ink but in tread. Above the doors, the stone teems with figures. Saints, angels, demons. The Last Judgment carved into arches, frozen in eternal motion. Their faces, worn by wind and rain, are both softened and sharpened by time, their eyes hollow yet unyielding. Some smile faintly, some grimace, some simply gaze outward beyond you, into a distance you cannot follow. A bell tolls, deep, sonorous, heavy with resonance. It does not rush. It does not need to. Each strike unfolds into the air like a wave across a still pond, rolling outward, lingering long after the clapper has struck. You feel it more than hear it, low in your chest, humming through your bones. The city pauses for it. The sound belongs to everyone and to no one. You step inside. At once the world changes. The warmth of the forge is gone. The light of the lane dissolves. The cathedral breathes in silence. and you with it. The air is cool, almost cold, filled with the faint scent of incense, of wax, of stone that has held centuries of prayers. Sound behaves differently here. Your footsteps do not vanish. They echo, soft but endless, rising into the vaults above. Even the smallest motion seems amplified. A cough, the strike of flint on candlewick, the shuffle of cloth. Light filters through high, narrow windows, fractured into colors by stained glass. Reds, blues, and golds drift across the stone floor, shifting as the sun climbs. The glass itself tells stories, saints martyred, miracles performed, sins punished, souls redeemed. Each panel a sermon, glowing with sunlight that turns ordinary stone into a surface alive with meaning. The columns rise like trees, massive and endless, their tops vanishing into ribbed vaults that interlace overhead like the branches of some eternal forest. You tilt your head back, and the ceiling seems farther than the sky outside, a weight and an expanse that is not oppressive but humbling. Here human effort feels small, yet it is precisely that smallness which the space exists to remind you of. Candles flicker in chapels along the nave, their flames tiny but determined against the vast stone around them. Each flame is a voice, fragile but persistent, adding its light to the whole. Their wax drips slowly, marking time in another language, a language of melting and of renewal. In the choir, faint voices begin to rise. Not speaking, not conversing, but chanting. A slow procession of syllables, unhurried, weaving together in echoes that fold upon themselves. The sound is not entirely human anymore. It has been reshaped by the stone, given weight and resonance by the cathedral itself. The building does not merely contain the chant, it sings with it. You stand in stillness, listening, watching, breathing. The forge beat like a heart. The watchtower loomed like a sentinel, but the cathedral does something else entirely. It does not protect, it does not build, it gathers. It binds the city not in defense, not in work, but in belief, in hope. In the slow endurance of faith carried through centuries, you walk out again, back into the city. The sunlight feels different now, thinner, as though filtered through the weight of that sacred shadow. The streets are once again filled with life. But in every sound, every step, you carry a piece of the stillness within you. The shadow of the cathedral does not fade, it follows. The cathedral's shadow still lingers behind you, heavy and hushed, but the silence does not last. It cannot last, not here. A sound drifts toward you, faint at first, then louder with every turn of the lane. Not a single sound, but many at once. A tide of voices layered upon each other, rising, falling, clashing, laughing, calling, the shuffle of feet, the clatter of carts, the bleating of goats, a child crying, a dog barking, a bell ringing somewhere in the noise. You step into the open square, and the market reveals itself like a sudden exhale. It is not orderly, it is not still, it is alive. Stalls lean against one another in crooked rows, their canvas awnings flapping faintly in the breeze. Wooden tables groan under the weight of goods, baskets of apples, their red skins shining in the light, loaves of bread stacked high, their crusts dusted white with flour, wheels of cheese thick with wax, cut open to reveal pale yellow hearts. The air is thick with smell, the sharp tang of onions, the sweetness of figs, the heavy scent of salted fish stacked on boards, their scales glinting like dull coins. A breeze carries the smoke of roasting meat, turning on a spit over glowing coals, fat dripping, sizzling, spitting into the fire. For a moment you can almost taste it on your tongue. People press close, a tide of bodies moving in currents you cannot quite predict. A woman calls out the price of her cloth, voice rising above the din. A boy slips between legs, clutching a basket, his pace too quick, his eyes too sharp. A merchant argues with a farmer over the worth of a barrel of cider. Their voices rise, then fall, then rise again. Yet no one stops to listen. It is only another note in the endless song of the market. Colors burst everywhere, dyed wool draped across a stall, Deep red, faded blue, bright green, earthenware jars glazed and painted lined up in rows like soldiers waiting inspection. Copper pots catching the sun, their surfaces glowing like miniature suns of their own. Even the people themselves are part of the color, their tunics, their hoods, their cloaks, patched and worn, yet bright against the grey of the stone square. The market breathes in patterns. Sellers inhale, drawing customers close with promises, with gestures, with smiles that do not always reach the eyes. Buyers exhale, releasing coins into waiting hands, or shaking their heads, or walking away with purses still closed. Goods change hands, voices overlap. The rhythm continues. Somewhere in the square, a musician plucks at a lute. The tune is thin, almost lost in the noise, but it carries a thread of order through the chaos, a faint melody winding between shouts and clatter. A small crowd gathers, half listening, half ignoring, coins dropping one by one into a cap at the musician's feet. You wander through slowly, letting the square envelop you. You brush against wool. You smell spices, cinnamon, saffron, pepper, their fragrance expensive, sharp, foreign, hints of distant ports and unseen seas. You hear the laughter of two girls who try on strings of beads, giggling as they hold them against their necks. Above it all, pigeons circle, their wings flashing silver as they dart between rooftops. They land boldly upon stalls, pecking at crumbs, scattering when shooed away. Their cooing mixes with the rest, another note in the great chorus. You realize, as you walk, that the market is more than trade. It is more than food, or goods, or coin. It is the city's voice, its laughter, its arguments, its stories, its scents and colors and textures. Without it, the city would be quieter, emptier, less alive. The cathedral gathered belief, the forge beat with labor. But here the city breathes. It exhales chaos and inhales life, again and again, without end. You step back, just far enough to see the whole square at once. The market is not beautiful, not in the way of stone towers or glass windows, but it does not need to be. It is living, it is endless, it is breath, and the city, for all its silence and shadow, cannot live without it. You leave behind the clamor of the market, its voices fading with each step, until they are no more than a distant murmur, like a dream already dissolving. The lanes narrow again, bending towards something quieter, something older than stone. Then you hear it, not sudden, not sharp, but steady. The sound of water, low and ceaseless, lapping against the banks, against the pilings of bridges, against the keels of boats moored in shadow. The river reveals itself as you round a corner, wide, slow, deliberate. It does not rush, but it does not stop. It moves with the weight of time itself, carrying silt, carrying secrets, carrying the memory of rains far away. The surface is restless. Ripples catch the pale light of the sun, scattering it into fragments that dance and vanish, only to be born again in the next wave. The current pulls always forward, never backward. You realize, standing at its edge, that no single drop of water here has ever been the same as before. It is always leaving, always arriving, always becoming. Wooden barges drift along its surface, their hulls heavy with goods, casks of ale, sacks of grain, barrels of salted herring, timber, iron, wool, all of it bound for other towns, other markets, other ports beyond the horizon. Men strain with poles to guide the barges, their bodies leaning, their movements slow but sure. The river resists, but it never refuses. Children gather at the edge, skipping stones across the current, their laughter carried downstream. Women kneel at the shallows, rinsing clothes, beating fabric against worn boards, their voices low as they trade words over the rhythm of work. A fisherman hauls up a net, dripping and silver with the catch of the morning, his face lined but calm, his motions practiced, unhurried. The air here is different. Cooler, softer, touched by the scent of wet earth and reeds. The market smelled of spice and smoke, the forge of iron and fire, but the river smells of something older, something that reminds you this city, for all its walls and towers, is not separate from the land. It is bound to it, fed by it, kept alive by it, kept alive by it. A bridge arches across the water, its stones worn smooth by centuries of steps. Carts rumble across it, wheels clattering against the cobbles, horses' hooves striking in measured rhythm. You pause in the middle of it, leaning over the worn parapet, and watch the river slide beneath. The current does not hurry, but it never ceases. The air here is different. Cooler, softer, touched by the scent of wet earth and reeds. The market smelled of spice and smoke, the forge of iron and fire, but the river smells of something older. Something that reminds you this city, for all its walls and towers, is not separate from the land. It is bound to it, fed by it, kept alive by it, kept alive by it. A bridge arches across the water, its stones worn smooth by centuries of steps. Carts rumble across it, wheels clattering against the cobbles, horses' hooves striking in measured rhythm. You pause in the middle of it, leaning over the worn parapet, and watch the river slide beneath. The current does not hurry, but it never ceases. You realize that the river is more than water. It is the city's vein. It carries inwards the goods that nourish it, and carries outwards the goods that sustain it. It links this cluster of stone and timber to the unseen vastness beyond the horizon. Without it, the city would wither, closed in upon itself. With it, the city lives in the. A small boat passes below you, a single man rowing, his oars dipping into the water with soft, regular strokes. The ripples spread outward, intersecting, breaking apart, then smoothing back into the current as though nothing had disturbed it. The boat moves on. The river remains. You stand there for a while, watching, listening, breathing with the flow, and then you step away, back toward the city. But even as you leave, you know the river continues, beyond your sight, beyond your hearing, beyond this moment, always carrying, always moving, always alive. The river's murmur follows you only so far before it too is swallowed by the city's stone. You walk on, through winding alleys that grow thinner, narrower, until at last the streets widen again, and you see it rising before you. The gate. It does not loom like the cathedral, nor brood like the tower. Its presence is different. It is not meant to inspire awe, nor to watch with vigilance. It is meant to divide, to separate, to decide who is within and who is without. Its arch rises high, cut into the thick curtain wall, framed by towers whose stones glow faintly orange in the low light of the sinking sun. The wood of the gate itself is iron-bound, pitted and scarred, darker than the stones around it. You can see where blades have struck it in years past, leaving behind long, shallow wounds that never quite healed. As the day ebbs, the gate becomes more than an opening. It becomes a mouth, wide, waiting. People move toward it in small clusters, their shapes drawn long by the falling sun. Some hurry to get inside before the night watch calls the order to close. Merchants return with empty carts, their beasts plodding slow and weary. A pair of travelers approach, cloaks dusted with the road, faces hidden beneath hoods. Guards glance at them, weigh them with eyes sharpened by duty, before allowing them through. The ground here is worn smooth by centuries of feet. Horseshoes have left crescents gouged deep into the stones. Wheel ruts scar the road leading away. Grooves cut into the earth like veins that lead back into the distance. Each line tells a story of passage, of arrivals, of departures, of beginnings, of endings. You linger, watching as the shadows lengthen. The air is different here. Inside the city, the smells are of hearth smoke, of bread, of iron. But here at the threshold, another scent arrives. Borne on the breeze, the faint tang of open fields, of soil, of grass bending beneath the dusk wind. It smells both free and dangerous, both open and unknown. The guards begin their preparations. Chains clink, voices call out. Slowly, ponderously, the great doors begin to move. Their hinges groan like old trees in a storm, a sound that echoes down the wall and into the stones beneath your feet. The space narrows, the light dwindles. With every heartbeat, the world beyond is cut off a little more. Those still outside quicken their pace, slipping through with only moments to spare. A farmer drives his mule hard, the cart wheels rattling in protest as he squeezes through just before the doors thud against each other. Dust rises at the impact. Silence follows. The gate is closed. Inside, torches are lit, their flames flickering in the gathering dark. The watch posts are manned, figures pacing atop the wall, their shapes black against the fading sky. The city exhales one final breath, then folds inward, sealed for the night. You stand just within the arch, one hand brushing against the ancient timbers, feeling the rough grooves beneath your fingers. Outside is the unknown fields, forests, roads leading toward danger and wonder alike. Inside is safety, walls, the rhythm of life you have walked through today. The gate does not choose for you, it waits, silent, immutable. It has waited for centuries, it will wait for centuries more. The city gate is sealed. Outside, the roads are empty, the fields silent, the woods already filling with the slow voices of night. But inside the inn, the world is far from still. You enter through a crooked doorway worn smooth by countless hands. The latch clicks behind you, and at once the cold is banished. Heat presses close, carrying the scents of fire, food and ale. The shift is abrupt, almost dizzying. It feels as though you've stepped not just into a room, but into another realm, one carved out against the dark. The hearth dominates the space. Its stones are blackened with age, each one carrying the soot of centuries. The flames leap, spit, collapse, then rise again, restless but constant. Their light does not merely push back the shadows, it breathes life into them, giving them form as they dance on walls and beams. You stand just within the arch, one hand brushing against the ancient timbers, feeling the rough grooves beneath your fingers. Outside is the unknown fields, forests, roads leading toward danger and wonder alike. Inside is safety, walls, the rhythm of life you have walked through today. The gate does not choose for you, it waits, silent, immutable. It has waited for centuries, it will wait for centuries more. Every sound is amplified here. The thud of mugs on wood, the crack of dice against the table, the creak of a chair beneath a weary traveler. The laughter that comes too loud, too sudden, spilling ale down sleeves. The hush that follows when a story grows darker than expected, when listeners lean forward and silence fills the gaps. There is a rhythm to it all, a pulse, a collective heartbeat. Food arrives in heavy platters, a haunch of meat carved and steaming, coarse bread torn apart, dipped in broth, onions and garlic thick in the air, the sweetness of malt cutting through. The dog by the hearth twitches its nose, hoping for scraps, but does not stir. It knows patience brings reward. You notice the faces. The locals, whose shoulders relax once the gate is closed, safe within stone walls. The merchants, whose eyes dart even in laughter, minds tallying the day's trade, wondering who gained more and who lost. The travelers cloaked and hooded, their posture stiff, as though unsure whether they've entered refuge or trap. Every inn is a stage, and every night a performance. A man at the far table begins to sing. Not well, not in tune, but with conviction. His voice carries, and soon others join, thumping the tables in time. The rafters hum with the sound, smoke trembling with the vibration, and for a moment the room is one. A single voice, a single pulse. Stories flow freely. Some are fragments of truth, others are inventions, twisted with each retelling until fact and fiction blur beyond recognition. The room does not care. Wolves, ghosts, soldiers, miracles, lost kings, found saints, it all belongs. Each tale adds another layer to the inn's invisible tapestry, threads of fear and wonder woven between laughter and song. This is not merely entertainment. In a world where darkness carries danger, stories are weapons, charms, shields. They shape fear into something that can be spoken aloud. They bind strangers into temporary fellowship, if only for the length of a song, a drink, a lie. And so the night deepens. The fire lowers to embers, glowing like hidden eyes in the stone. Some fall asleep on benches, heads bowed to their chests. Others stumble upstairs, boots clattering against wooden steps. A few remain awake, speaking in murmurs too soft to carry, their words drowned in the crackle of the hearth. You realize that what you are witnessing is more than rest, more than food or drink or story. The inn is survival itself, not of the body alone, but of memory, of fellowship, of meaning. Here, around the fire, the city remembers it is not only stone and wood. It is people gathered against the night. The hearth holds them together. It has always held them together, and long after they are gone, it still will. The inn's door shuts behind you. Outside, the night presses close, heavier than the day, thick with the scent of damp stone and cold earth. Only the faint glow of torches along the walls punctuates the darkness, casting long, quivering shadows that stretch into the empty streets. You ascend the narrow spiral staircase to the battlements. Each step groans underfoot, a reminder that centuries of feet have passed this way before. The city stretches beneath you, its rooftops black, silent, sloping into alleys that the torchlight cannot reach. The river glints faintly in the distance, a sliver of silver against ink. The watchman begins his patrol. Cloaked in wool, hood pulled low, he moves slowly, deliberately, each footfall muted on the stone. His eyes are sharp, trained to pierce the darkness, to detect movement in the smallest shadow, the faintest glint of metal. Every corner, every tower, every arrow slit is part of his responsibility. Tonight, the city rests, but he cannot. The wind stirs. It whistles along the parapet, tugging at his cloak, carrying scents from the city below, smoke from chimneys, the tang of livestock, the faint sweetness of overripe fruit left in open markets. There is also something else, the tang of the wilderness creeping close, unseen beyond the walls. It smells of soil, moss and damp wood. Danger waits there. Wolves, bandits, miscreants. The night knows no allegiance. He pauses at the corner tower. His hand rests on the stone, rough beneath his fingers, worn smooth by centuries of guardians before him. From this height, the city is small, fragile. Its streets are veins, its towers bone. A single torch flickers far below, signaling some lost soul wandering too long. From somewhere in the distance, a dog barks. The sound carries sharp in the quiet. A whip of movement catches the corner of his eye, but it is only a branch, shaking in the wind. Still, he does not flinch. The night is a constant test of attention, a long vigil that erodes both body and mind. He walks, step by step, tower to tower. Each stone underfoot has felt centuries of watchmen, of sieges, of celebrations after victories, of silence after defeats. The walls themselves hum with memory, a low vibration the city feels but cannot name. A lantern swings in the next tower, a signal, a pulse in the dark. Messages travel this way across the walls, between towers, across the length of the city. Eyes meet in the shadowed distance, gestures exchanged silently. Even in sleep, the city communicates, protecting itself. Below, the streets are empty, yet the watchman senses movement, the hint of breath that does not belong. A rat scurries along a rooftop, quick and deliberate. A cat stalks a shadowed alley, and somewhere far beyond, the river murmurs, carrying secrets toward places unknown. The patrol continues. The night drags, slow and deep, stretching time until the horizon barely promises dawn. The watchman's eyes never leave the city, never leave the darkness. Every corner could hide threat. Every shadow could mask story. Every silence carries weight. He is alone, yet part of something greater. The city sleeps under his vigilance. He walks not for glory, nor for recognition, but because the walls demand it, because the safety of all within these stones depends on the persistence of a single pair of eyes. And so he moves, hour after hour, until the first hint of pale light begins to fray the edges of the night, promising the slow return of the day, but never promising safety, only the chance to repeat the watch when night. The inn's warmth vanishes behind you. Outside, the city exhales a cold breath that presses against your face, carrying the metallic tang of the river and the damp scent of stone. The streets are silent, but not empty. There is a quiet pulse beneath the hush, a rhythm of life paused yet never gone. The watchman's boots echo softly on the cobblestones as he approaches the walls. Every step is deliberate, every sound measured. Above him the moon hangs low, pale and steady, casting silver shadows that stretch across rooftops like fingers reaching for the night. A low wind stirs, tugging at cloaks and banners, making torches flicker and smoke dance in the air. He climbs the narrow spiral staircase to the battlements. The stones are worn by centuries of passage, uneven beneath his feet, cold as the night itself. Reaching the top, he pauses. From this height, the city is a tapestry of shadow and muted light, a fragile skeleton of streets, houses and markets. Lanterns in windows glow faintly, the only evidence of life tucked away from the cold and darkness. The patrol begin, step by step, tower to tower, each movement measured against the silence. The walls are alive with memory, centuries of sieges, victories, festivals and funerals etched into every stone. The watchman feels the weight of this history, a silent companion beside him, reminding him that tonight, like all nights, vigilance is his duty. A faint murmur reaches him from below, the wind rattling shutters, a dog barking in the distance, the scuff of a rat along a roof. Nothing moves that should, yet every sound demands attention. Shadows stretch, merge and twist along the battlements. Even a swaying branch can appear monstrous from this height, and the watchman's eyes have learned to read the night with suspicion. He reaches the corner tower. His hand rests on the cold stone, rough beneath his fingers. Below, the alleyways are dark veins, twisting and narrow. Somewhere deep in the city, a candle flickers, promising warmth but also hinting at hidden stories, secrets waiting to emerge once the gates are closed and the city breathes in darkness. From the next tower, a lantern swings, a signal. The watchman notes the movement and nods, understanding the silent communication that binds these guardians. Each tower watches, each pair of eyes defends, each hand is ready should danger arise. The city sleeps, but the night is never truly still. A distant river murmurs against its banks, carrying whispers of travelers long gone, of secrets submerged beneath currents. Somewhere beyond the walls, forested hills loom in the moonlight, silent and watchful. Wolves may move there, bandits may lurk, misfortune may strike at any hour. Yet here on the walls, the watchman holds the line, a solitary figure bearing the city's trust. Time drags. Minutes stretch like hours. Every movement, every flicker of shadow demands scrutiny. The chill gnaws at exposed skin. Breath rises in thin clouds. The moon slowly arcs across the sky, pale and unyielding. Sleep tempts him, but the walls will not forgive neglect. Vigilance is survival. As the hours crawl on, he observes the subtle life of the city. Windows, dark and silent. Chimneys that still smoke faintly. Alley cats slinking along rooftops. A lone traveler, hooded, pressing against a wall, disappearing into shadow. Every detail matters. Every sound, every shape, every movement could mean safety or danger. And still, he walks, step by step, tower to tower, along the city's bones. The walls themselves seem to breathe beneath his feet, remembering all who have walked before, all who have defended, all who have faltered. He is alone, yet part of this continuum, a thread woven into the city's eternal fabric. Dawn promises to break eventually. Light will creep over rooftops, painting the walls gold and revealing the streets once more. But for now, the city is dark. The night is his companion. The shadows are his domain. And until the first light, the watchman will walk, guarding the city that sleeps unaware, carrying the weight of memory, vigilance and survival on shoulders both human and historic. Beneath the towers and battlements, the city narrows. Streets twist and fold like the lines of a weathered map, alleys diverging, converging, then disappearing into shadows. Cobblestones, slick with rain or mud, glisten faintly under the sporadic light of lanterns, swaying on rusted iron hooks. Here, the city feels alive in a different way. The quiet is not peace, but waiting. Each corner could hide movement. Each doorway could conceal a whisper, a dagger, a pair of eyes tracking every step. The walls are close now, stone pressing inward, houses leaning like weary companions, their upper floors overhanging, almost touching across the narrow streets. The air carries a complex perfume. Smoke from hearths mingles with refuse, fermented ale, and the faint tang of river water. Rats scurry, their tiny claws clicking on stone, disappearing into cracks. Cats, sleek and silent, patrol the shadows. Somewhere a child cries softly, muffled by the night, and the echoes seem to stretch endlessly. The hidden passages narrow, vaulted, sometimes just a barely noticeable gap between houses, offer escape and secrecy. They were built for convenience, for smuggling, for hiding in times of plague or pillage. They twist unpredictably, leading to courtyards, back doors, or sometimes nothing at all, ending abruptly at a wall of stone or a dead-end staircase. A lone figure moves through these passages, cloak pulled tight, hood low, footsteps almost silent. Their eyes are sharp, scanning the darkness. Every flicker of torchlight, every shadow cast by a leaning shutter, every creak of wood above could betray them. The city is not forgiving here. Mistake once, and you vanish into the alleys, into memory, into the hands of fate. These alleys are arteries of rumor, of commerce, of crime, of survival. Peddlers wheel hidden carts from one courtyard to the next, selling dried meat, herbs, or stolen goods. Prostitutes linger in corners, voices soft and persuasive. Thieves slip along walls, picking pockets and disappearing before the victim realizes a hand has been brushed. And beggars, gaunt and silent, lie in shadows, counting on the inattentive for alms. Above it all, the city towers loom like guardians or oppressors. Windows glimmer with candlelight. From them, eyes watch the streets below, judging, calculating, observing the rhythm of nightlife. Some see only safety, others see opportunity. The line between them is thin and often crossed. The passages themselves tell stories. Marks in the stone, worn smooth by centuries of boots. Scars left by carts scraping walls. Charcoal scratches from children playing in hidden courtyards long ago. A faint symbol etched near a doorframe, a sign understood only by those who know its secret meaning, signaling sanctuary or warning. And yet, in these twisting alleys there is beauty. The way moonlight slices through a narrow gap between buildings, the sudden glimpse of a garden tucked behind a high wall, scented with herbs and flowers that defy the dark. The quiet companionship of fellow travelers, or the fleeting warmth of a lantern's glow as it swings past. The city breathes here in whispers, in creaks, in the tiny heartbeat of life under shadow. It is a place of danger, yes, but also of mystery, of freedom from the watchman's eyes above, of hidden stories waiting to be uncovered. In every twist, in every turn, the city keeps its secrets close. To walk its alleys is to become part of a living map, to understand the pulse of medieval life that thrives beyond the gates, beyond the walls, beyond the hearth's glow. And as the night stretches on, the alleys, like veins in stone, carry the city's lifeblood quietly forward, ever winding, ever secret, always awake. By the edge of the city's main square, the market never truly sleeps. Though the day's bustle has ended, lanterns still sway in the cool night air, casting long, quivering shadows over empty stalls and cobblestones. The scent of damp straw, spilled ale, and the faint tang of salted fish hangs in the air, mingling with the aromatic wafts of herbs, spices, and roasting chestnuts. A few late-night merchants linger, packing away goods or selling them in secret to those who know the proper hour. Some specialize in items that cannot be sold openly: illicit medicines, rare herbs, stolen silks, and coin purloined from unsuspecting travelers. Their voices are low and measured, each word a negotiation performed with caution, a dance between trust and suspicion. The clatter of wooden carts on stone echoes through the square, punctuated by the occasional call of a street hawker. Fresh bread, hot from the oven. But even these simple calls carry a different cadence at night, hushed, wary, as if each syllable could be overheard by the wrong listener. Merchants and buyers alike move like shadows, gliding from stall to stall, inspecting wares with quick, careful gestures, their eyes flicking toward alleys, doorways and the darkened windows above. Musicians sometimes wander through the square, playing quiet melodies on lutes or flutes. The music is softer than in the day, intimate, almost conspiratorial, as though the city itself listens and responds. The notes bounce off the surrounding stone walls, weaving with the scent of roasting food and the murmur of secretive commerce. Dogs, long accustomed to human presence, pad along the edges of the square, sniffing, waiting for scraps. Cats perch on barrels, their eyes reflecting lantern light like twin moons, ever vigilant. Occasionally a rat darts across the cobbles, unnoticed by the busy shadows weaving through the stalls. Every creature is a witness, every sound a subtle indicator of life continuing in the city's nocturnal rhythm. The square itself seems to breathe. Lanterns cast warm circles of light, illuminating small groups huddled in negotiation. Shadows slip between the pools of brightness, stretching along the stones like ink spreading in water. The occasional sound of laughter or argument rises briefly, then is swallowed by the city's broader hush. Time stretches differently at night. Hours blend into one another as transactions are made, rumors exchanged, alliances formed in whispers. A merchant counts coins under a flickering lantern, a traveler carefully checks a map, and a street performer draws a small audience with the soft strum of strings. All moves are deliberate, calculated, careful, for in this twilight economy, even a minor misstep can cost more than money. And yet, amid caution and commerce, there is warmth. The market's heart beats quietly, the camaraderie of those who share secrets, the thrill of a bargain struck under the moon, the quiet satisfaction of surviving another night in a city that never fully rests. The market at night is a hidden world, a liminal space where danger and opportunity coexist, and where the pulse of medieval life continues in secret, under lantern light and shadow. Even as the main market stalls fold their wares, and the day's throngs disappear, the city's square retains a pulse of life that never truly sleeps. Lanterns sway gently in the night breeze, casting long, trembling shadows over cobblestones polished smooth by centuries of footsteps. The faint scent of smoke from distant hearths mingles with the sharper tang of salted fish, the earthy aroma of root vegetables, and the subtle sweetness of dried fruits, a layered perfume of commerce and survival. A handful of persistent merchants remain, their stalls dimly lit, offering goods that cannot be shown by day, illicit potions, rare silks, small charms, and coins exchanged quietly for secrets rather than wares. Their voices are low, careful, each word chosen, each gesture measured, for the night is a veil both protective and perilous. The market is a stage for human cunning and improvisation. A hooded figure slips between stalls, a hidden parcel pressed against their chest. A pair of thieves shadow a distracted merchant, testing the locks on a cart laden with goods. Each movement is deliberate, silent, rehearsed, each glance over the shoulder a reminder that the night favors the vigilant. Musicians drift through the square, their melodies hushed, intimate. A lute strums softly in a corner, a flute joins with a faint trill, their notes bouncing off the stone buildings and mixing with the rustle of carts, the creak of shutters, and the occasional muted laughter. Even in darkness, life asserts itself in music, creating fleeting pockets of warmth amidst shadow. Animals adapt to the nocturnal rhythm. Dogs pad along edges, sniffing, alert but nonchalant. Cats glide along walls and barrels, eyes glimmering like twin moons, silent observers of human activity. Rats dart unseen across the stones, their movements unnoticed by most but crucial to the rhythm of survival for those who know the city intimately. Lantern light reveals glimpses of intimacy and intrigue, a merchant counting coins with shaking hands, a traveler checking a carefully folded map, a clandestine meeting between strangers who might be allies or spies. Every shadow could conceal opportunity or danger. Even the moon seems to trace the square in a deliberate, watchful arc, illuminating only fragments of the city's hidden nocturnal life. The city itself seems to breathe in this darkness. Sounds are amplified. A distant shout ricochets off stone walls. The clatter of a dropped coin resonates, Footsteps echo with unintentional clarity. Yet amid this heightened awareness there is also a rhythm, a quiet choreography. Merchants, thieves, lovers, musicians, and wanderers moving together in a nocturnal dance that has persisted for generations. Whispers are currency here. Rumors spread through the square in hushed tones exchanged for coins, favors or a glimpse of knowledge. Deals are made without witnesses. Debts are settled with subtle gestures. The market is not merely a place of trade, it is a crossroads of human cunning, survival, and connection. And in the quietest moments when a lantern flickers low and the music fades, the market becomes almost timeless. One can almost hear the footsteps of those who walked these stones centuries before. Merchants, thieves, lovers, children, all leaving faint echoes in the rhythm of the square. Life continues, quiet but insistent, in a city that never fully rests. Even in shadow, the market at night is alive with possibility, danger, and human resilience. It is a place where stories unfold in whispers, bargains are struck under lantern light, and the heartbeat of medieval life continues, hidden from the sun but vibrant under the moon. The river is the lifeblood of the city, winding silently beneath stone bridges, whose arches rise like sentinels from the dark waters. By day, the river teems with boats, merchants, and travelers. By night, it transforms into a quiet artery of shadow and reflection. Lanterns sway on the bridges, their flickering light mirrored in the gentle ripple of the current, creating twin pathways of gold that guide the careful traveler across the water. Bridges are more than just crossings, they are stages for commerce, espionage, and clandestine encounters. Beneath the arches, small skiffs wait, hidden in shadow, ready to ferry goods or people across the river away from prying eyes. The sound of oars tapping stone, the soft slap of water against hull, and the faint creak of timbers blend with the distant murmur of the city, forming a nocturnal symphony of movement and secrecy. Along the riverbanks, the air is damp and cool, carrying the faint scent of algae, fish, and the river's steady undertone. Narrow paths wind between warehouses and quay walls, their stones slick with water and moss. Here, merchants and smugglers tread carefully, their footsteps measured, alert to the possibility of guards or thieves. Every crate, barrel, and bundle tells a story, cargo of spices, cloth, or coins, waiting for the right hands to claim them. The bridges themselves are alive with nocturnal activity. Lovers meet in quiet corners, their whispered words absorbed by the arches. Informers pass coded messages along the parapets. Thieves use the height to survey the river below, gauging boats and barges for opportunity. Even the city watch patrols cautiously, lanterns swinging and boots clattering on stone, eyes scanning for disturbance yet unable to see every shadow. Reflections in the water are deceptive. Moonlight dances across the surface, distorting shapes, creating phantom boats or ghostly figures that vanish when approached. The river seems to hold secrets, capturing whispers of past centuries, echoes of footsteps, splashes, and clandestine conversations. A careful traveler learns to read not only the stone and wood, but the subtle signs in the water, a ripple, a shadow, a glint of metal signaling movement beneath the surface. Life along the riverbanks is precarious yet vital. Fishermen sometimes cast nets under the veil of night, their quiet work producing sustenance for the city. Dockhands shift crates in silence, the rhythm of labor synchronized with the gentle lapping of the river. Even stray animals find refuge here, cats hunting for rats, dogs padding along the quay, and the occasional rat darting between timbers unnoticed but omnipresent. Pickpockets slip between travelers, shadowing footsteps with practiced precision. Smugglers hide contraband in secret compartments or beneath tarps, exchanging goods under the faint glow of lanterns. The river itself is treacherous, currents swift in places, hidden rocks waiting to tear a boat's hull, and waters dark enough to conceal both friend and foe. And yet, amid tension and risk there is poetry. Lantern light dances on rippling water, echoing off stone arches. The city above sleeps, but below the river whispers tales of commerce, escape, and intrigue. For those who dare to traverse the bridges and banks at night, the city reveals a hidden dimension, a quiet, reflective world where movement is deliberate, life is fragile, and every crossing may hold a story waiting to unfold. Travelers learn to respect both the water and the stone, A misstep on a slick quay, a misplaced oar, or a glance in the wrong direction can cost more than a coin. Yet for those who move with awareness and patience, the bridges and riverbanks are not merely obstacles, but lifelines, pathways of connection, commerce, and survival, threading the city together in a dance of shadow and light. The city gates stand as both guardians and thresholds, massive timbered portals reinforced with iron, looming over the cobblestone streets like silent sentinels. By day, they are portals of commerce and conversation, welcoming merchants, travelers, and pilgrims. By night, they transform into symbols of vigilance and control, their heavy doors closing the city off from the surrounding darkness, leaving only the daring, desperate, or authorized to slip through. Patrols trace the walls in measured steps, boots clattering softly against the ramparts, lanterns swinging and casting elongated shadows across the stone. Archers peer over battlements, quivers ready, eyes scanning for movement in the darkness beyond. The gates are more than openings, they are choke points of life and death, commerce and crime, where every approach carries uncertainty. The walls themselves hum with subtle nocturnal life. Guards whisper as they shift position, signaling across towers with quiet gestures. Rats scurry through the cracks, undisturbed by human authority. Even the wind seems to conspire, whistling through crenellations, echoing down narrow alleys and carrying faint sounds of life from within the city and the shadowed lands beyond. Beyond the gates lies the unknown. Forests, fields, and roads where danger moves freely. Travelers approach cautiously, their horses' hooves muted against the stone. Some are merchants returning from distant towns, their wagons creaking under the weight of goods. Others are wanderers, refugees, or spies, their faces hidden beneath cloaks, eyes darting to every shadow as they seek entry. A misstep, a forgotten password, or a suspicious gesture can mean confrontation or worse. Inside the walls, the city feels both protected and confined. The gates control movement but also amplify tension. Those passing through are measured not only by guards but by circumstance, the late hour, the weight of their cargo, the urgency in their eyes. A blacksmith carrying molten iron or a messenger with vital letters must contend with the same scrutiny as a thief attempting to slip in unnoticed. Every crossing is a negotiation of trust, observation, and awareness. The walls themselves tell stories. Weathered stone bears the marks of siege and repair, carved graffiti and centuries of footprints worn smooth by soldiers, merchants, and citizens alike. Lantern light flickers across their surfaces, revealing niches where a watchman might rest briefly, or where messages are secretly dropped. From these heights, the city spreads below like a patchwork of shadow and illumination. Alleys winding between houses, the glow of lanterns in the market, and the river reflecting moonlight like a silent ribbon. At night, the gates are also theaters of human emotion. Lovers linger briefly in secret, exchanging whispered words and quick glances. Messengers hurry past, urgency etched in every stride. Guards carry the weight of responsibility, alert to every sound, every flicker of movement that could indicate danger. The tension is palpable, a mix of fear, anticipation, and ritual, a nightly dance that has repeated for generations. Even within the city, the walls mark boundaries. Beyond them lies freedom tinged with risk. Inside, safety tempered by oversight. The night stretches long, and those who move along the gates and ramparts must adapt to a rhythm dictated by stone, shadow, and duty. The city breathes beneath them, alive with commerce, intrigue, and survival, while the gates maintain their silent vigilance against the encroaching dark. In the quietest moments, the gates seem almost alive, resonating with the stories of those who passed before. Each knock, each creak of timber, each shuffle of a boot is a note in the symphony of the city's nocturnal life. The walls and gates are guardians, yes, but also witnesses, silent chroniclers of human ambition, caution, and ingenuity. Taverns and inns are the arteries of nocturnal life in a medieval city. Lanterns glow through narrow windows, spilling golden light onto wet cobblestones, inviting weary travelers and local patrons alike into warm, smoky rooms. The air inside is thick with the mingling scents of roasted meat, spilled ale, wood smoke, and the faint tang of unwashed bodies. Every creak of floorboard and clink of mug carries whispers of trade, gossip, and secrets exchanged under the veil of night. The tavern is a crossroads of society. Merchants recount the day's dealings, their voices tinged with pride or frustration. Travelers exchange news from distant towns, describing roads, dangers, and unusual sightings. Local craftsmen boast of skill or bemoan their fortunes. And in shadowed corners, deals of a different nature are made. Stolen goods change hands quietly, coded messages are passed between conspirators, and alliances are formed over mugs of ale thick with froth and ambition. Inns, while similar, serve a different rhythm. Rooms upstairs are cramped and smoky, beds hard and privacy scarce. Travelers of all types, pilgrims, merchants, soldiers, or fugitives, seek rest, yet the walls are thin and stories travel easily. The innkeeper is both host and observer, balancing hospitality with vigilance, often knowing more about a guest than the guest intends to reveal. Courtyards echo with horses' hooves and the occasional clash of swords when tempers flare. Noise and movement never cease entirely. Barmaids weave between tables, balancing mugs of ale and plates of food, their eyes alert to trouble. Minstrels play lutes or flutes, providing entertainment but also masking conversations meant to stay private. Patrons laugh, argue, and sometimes brawl. The tavern's floor becomes a stage for human drama that repeats night after night. The tavern is also a theater of tension. Pickpockets move skillfully among the crowded tables, fingers nimble and eyes sharp. Informers slip into conversations, listening for rumors of political plots or local unrest. Travelers learn quickly to be aware. A careless word can reveal their destination, a lost coin can reveal their wealth, and a poorly chosen companion can bring danger. Every exchange, no matter how mundane, carries potential consequence. Above the tavern, rooms often hide stories untold. Lovers steal moments of intimacy, their whispers absorbed by creaking beams. Couriers hide letters beneath bedding, and those fleeing justice seek temporary sanctuary under the innkeeper's cautious gaze. In these small spaces, the city's undercurrent of intrigue and human ambition is concentrated, a microcosm of the wider urban world outside. The night in taverns and inns is a study in contrast, warmth against the cold streets, light against shadow, revelry against caution. Here travelers learn to read both faces and surroundings. The walls are witnesses to human triumphs and failures, the tables etched with rings of spilled ale and the hearths carrying the smell of countless meals prepared and consumed. By midnight the tavern begins to thin, patrons either stumbling to beds, seeking the quiet of the street, or lingering in secret corners. The innkeeper counts coins, observes the departing guests, and listens for the faintest echo of trouble. Outside, the city sleeps unevenly, but inside these walls the pulse of commerce, gossip, and survival continues, a lifeblood that feeds the rhythm of nocturnal urban life. Travelers who understand the tavern's rhythms learn more than news or coin. They learn alliances, threats, and opportunities. Every drink, every handshake, every whispered word is a thread in the city's intricate web, a network of commerce, secrecy, and human ambition. In the medieval night, the tavern and inn are as vital as the streets themselves, a place where stories unfold, dangers lurk, and life is lived in the shadows between lantern light and moonlight. Beneath the lantern-lit streets and bustling squares, the city's narrow alleyways twist and coil like veins, carrying the lifeblood of secrets, danger, and clandestine movement. They are shadowed corridors where the ordinary rules of day give way to a different order, one dictated by stealth, cunning, and the ever-present risk of misstep. Timbered buildings lean over each other, creating tunnels of shadow, while loose stones and uneven cobblestones threaten every step. The air carries the mingling scents of refuse, damp wood, and the occasional whiff of urine or rotting food, smells that cling to boots, cloaks, and nostrils alike. The alleyways are alive with movement that the untrained eye may miss, rats scuttling along gutters, cats prowling silently, and shadows that may conceal both predator and prey. For the city's underworld, these paths are highways of opportunity. Pickpockets glide along walls, fingers quick and precise, exploiting every crowd, distraction, or noisy tavern exit. Informants slip unseen between alleys, delivering whispered secrets to their patrons or slipping coins into hidden hands. Smugglers move illicit goods under the cover of darkness, weighing every sound, the clatter of a dropped coin, the echo of a footstep, as a possible herald of trouble. But the alleyways are not only the domain of the criminal. Couriers racing against time use them to bypass guards and gates, carrying letters or packages of vital information. Messengers avoid main streets, navigating the labyrinth with intimate knowledge of twists, dead ends, and hidden shortcuts. Travelers who understand the alleys can find a faster path, a hidden inn, or a safe passage that the uninformed would never suspect. Danger in these narrow paths is never abstract. A wrong turn might lead to a mugging, an ambush, or an encounter with an angry townsman. Shadows stretch unnaturally between walls, and the slightest echo can betray a presence. Lanterns swinging on brackets or in hands of cautious passers create moving pools of light, but they do little to illuminate the corners where danger waits. Every alley has its story, a murder concealed, a deal concluded, a lover meeting in secret, a thief caught and cursed. Despite their risks, the alleyways pulse with life. Children run between homes, dodging the worn stones. Stray dogs bark or growl at intruders. Merchants sweep out refuse before dawn. And street performers, though rare, sometimes claim a quiet corner to display tricks or music for late-night audiences. Every movement, every sound is amplified by the narrowness of the space, creating a city alive with tension, rhythm, and possibility. The hidden paths above and between buildings, narrow wooden walkways, ladders, and overhanging ledges add another layer of complexity. Acrobatic thieves or daring couriers can navigate these vertical spaces, avoiding the gaze of guards or street-level dangers. From these vantage points, one can watch the city below, tracking the movement of citizens, merchants, or rivals. The alleys are both maze and stage, offering concealment, escape, and surveillance in equal measure. By the deepest hours of night, when most lanterns flicker and fade, the alleyways take on a near mystical quality. Fog and mist creep along stones, dampening sound and heightening every step. A lone traveler feels the weight of walls pressing in, the silence amplified, and the knowledge that a single misjudged movement can change the course of the night. Yet those familiar with the shadows move confidently, aware that within the danger lies opportunity, and that mastery of these hidden paths is mastery of the city itself. The medieval alleyways and hidden paths are more than mere passages. They are the arteries of secrecy, the veins through which the city's clandestine life flows. In their darkness, stories are told, fortunes made or lost, and lives altered, all beneath the gaze of lanterns and stars, and the ever-watchful eyes of the city's walls. The river is the lifeblood of the medieval city, its dark waters reflecting the flickering glow of lanterns from timbered houses and fortified walls. By day, it hums with commerce, barges laden with grain, timber, and barrels of ale drift lazily downstream. Fishermen cast nets and mend lines, and townsfolk gather along the banks to wash, trade, or gossip. But by night, the river transforms into a realm of shadow and suspense, a liquid artery threaded with both opportunity and peril. City bridges are more than mere crossings. They are checkpoints, marketplaces, and stages for human drama. Wooden planks creak under hurried steps, lanterns sway in the wind, and the currents below murmur like a living entity, warning of hidden dangers. Merchants and travelers linger cautiously, aware that the darkness can conceal thieves, spies, or even creatures drawn to the banks. Some bridges are fortified with guard posts, where watchmen scan the water and roads for suspicious movement, their spears and lanterns cutting through the night like eyes in the gloom. The river itself is a paradox of serenity and menace. Its surface reflects the city's towers and spires, yet conceals hidden currents, submerged debris, and the occasional unlucky soul who slips from a dock or bridge. Boats drift silently in shadow, their occupants wary of patrols or rival gangs. Fishermen sometimes take advantage of the night, fishing in secrecy, while smugglers transport contraband under the cover of fog and darkness. Every splash, every creak of oar or rope is amplified in the still night air, demanding caution and skill. Bridges serve as social hubs after dark. Travelers pause to rest, exchange information, or overhear whispers of commerce and politics. Lovers sometimes meet in secrecy, leaning over rails to speak softly to one another, oblivious to the dangers below. But these structures are also sites of risk. Pickpockets slip unseen among those crossing, and robbers lie in wait near arches, ready to ambush the careless. The combination of height, shadow, and noise creates both concealment and opportunity. The riverbanks amplify the city's nocturnal rhythm. Lanterns from nearby houses reflect in the water, casting shimmering patterns that guide or mislead. Narrow docks and alleys along the river's edge offer hidden routes for those seeking clandestine entry or escape. Guards patrol with measured steps, the clatter of boots on timber signaling their presence, but even the most vigilant cannot cover every inch. The water, ever moving, is both barrier and passage, a channel of commerce, secrecy, and fleeting safety. Weather and tide add further complexity. Fog can rise from the river, blanketing the city in a soft, damp veil that muffles sound and obscures vision. Heavy rains swell the currents, making crossings treacherous and paths along the banks slick and dangerous. Ice in winter can freeze edges, providing unusual shortcuts but hidden hazards. The river is as unpredictable as the city's human inhabitants, demanding respect and careful navigation. By midnight, the river and its bridges embody the duality of medieval urban life. They are conduits for survival and commerce, but also stages for danger, intrigue, and human cunning. Travelers who respect the currents, observe the shadows, and understand the rhythm of the city's waterways gain an edge in navigating both commerce and secrecy. Those who underestimate the river find themselves at its mercy, for in the quiet murmur of flowing water, every night carries a story, every bridge a choice, and every shadow a potential threat. As the city awakens fully under the morning sun, the shadows of the night linger only in memory, in narrow alleyways, in the murmur of the river, in the creaking of bridges and gates that have witnessed centuries of human endeavor. Medieval cities were living, breathing organisms, defined by both their grandeur and their danger. Streets teeming with merchants, travelers, and guards during the day concealed the nocturnal heartbeat of intrigue, secrecy, and survival that shaped the lives of all who moved within them. Traveling through such cities was never a simple matter of navigation or curiosity. Every street corner, bridge, and market stall carried its own risks and opportunities. To move safely and wisely, one needed awareness, patience, and respect for the rhythms of the city, the way shadows fell, how the river flowed, where guards lingered, and how commerce and human ambition intertwined. The lesson for us today, as observers of this dark age world, is clear. Understanding a city, whether medieval or modern, demands attention to detail, empathy for those who lived within it, and a recognition that every place has both visible and hidden layers. The past teaches us that human activity is rarely simple, and every city carries the imprint of both beauty and danger, order and chaos, light and shadow. So, as you leave the streets of the medieval city in your imagination, carry these lessons forward. Move carefully, observe closely, respect the unseen forces shaping every space, and remember that history is alive in the places and people who came before us. The city in all its complexity is both a teacher and a mirror, offering insight not only into the past, but into the rhythms, dangers, and wonders of human life itself. In the end, to explore a city is to explore humanity, its ambition, its vulnerabilities, and its enduring resilience. And just like those travelers who once navigated the darkened streets and river bridges of medieval Europe, we too can move through history with curiosity, caution, and awe.